China's homegrown chips prop up its auto's global charge. Why can't the US stop it? The very next day after the US was busy adding the new energy vehicle, NEV, supply chain to its review blacklist, a piece of news from China made the White House restless. In 2024, China's NEV exports hit 1.284 million units, achieving a counter-trend growth of 6.7% year-on-year, with plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, PHEVs, specifically seeing a phenomenal 190% surge in exports. On one side there is a technology iron curtain, with constantly escalating restrictions, and on the other, increasingly popular Chinese cars. Doesn't this upend your perception? How did the massive review net that the US spent billions building turn into a sieve? Many believe that the more advanced a chip is, the better. However, for NEVs, mature process chips, 28 nanometers and above, are the real workhorses. It's like driving. Not everyone needs an F1 racer. The economical and durable family SUV is the mainstream choice. Core functions like in-car navigation and battery management are perfectly served by mature process chips, which cost less than a tenth of their cutting-edge counterparts. By achieving self-sufficiency in this category, Chinese domestic companies have essentially equipped their NEVs with a made-in-China heart. Even more astonishing is that this breakthrough is not a single point of success, but a full chain blossoming. While the US is preoccupied with advanced chip production capacity, China has interwoven the entire supply chain, mature chips, batteries, motors, into a golden chain. In the European market in 2024, Chinese EV sales grew by 59%, and PHEVs soared by a staggering 546%, leaving even Tesla behind. The secret weapon behind this growth is the Chinese supply chain. Next, let's dissect where the US review net has holes and why European carmakers are so frantic. How much road has the autonomous development of mature process chips paved for the global expansion of Chinese cars? Boxing glove America's review knockout punch landed on its own supply chain foot. On November 21st, the US announced an expansion of the sieve US jurisdiction, bringing NEV batteries and in-car AI systems into the review cage, even extending to the hiring of AI talent by Chinese enterprises in the US. However, they forgot that their own NEV supply chain has been suffering from soft bone disease for a long time. The CHIPS Act poured over $33 billion into the industry, yet the mature process chip capacity has barely made a dent. Texas Instruments' new wafer fab won't begin production until 2026. Conversely, China's self-sufficiency in 28 nanometers and above chips has turned the NEV chip shortage crisis into a thing of the past. In 2024, China's total auto exports reached 5.859 million units, firmly securing the world's #1 position. The ultimate irony is that the more the US restricts, the more robust the Chinese supply chain becomes. US domestic automakers are already highly reliant on Chinese chips. Ford had to halt production at 3 EV factories last year due to a chip shortage and eventually had to secretly import Chinese-made in-car chips to get by. Their logic is to choke the neck, but they are ultimately choking their own carmakers. The global supply chain is like a net. If you cut yourself off from the largest supplier, you only hurt yourself. By using mature process chips to secure its fundamental position, China has avoided the patent trap of cutting-edge technology while simultaneously capturing the rigid demand lifeline of the auto industry. This targeted approach is 100 times smarter than blindly chasing advanced processes. Fearful face European carmakers, collective anxiety is hidden in Chinese sales data. As the birthplace of the automobile, Europe once saw NEVs as its comeback card. Yet, in 2024, despite Volkswagen investing €18 billion in electrification R&D, its NEV sales were only 745,000 units, a fraction of Tesla's, and it lost 300,000 units of market share in China. Meanwhile, Chinese carmakers are on a roll in Europe. BYD's sales grew by 28% year-on-year, and models from SAIC and Chery were snapped up immediately upon launch. In April alone, Chinese EV sales in Europe hit 15,300 units. How panicked are European carmakers? Volkswagen CEO Oliver Blume directly called for them to learn the China speed, planning to launch 40 new cars in China over 3 years, half of which will be electric models. Europe's predicament is fundamentally rooted in its high-cost trap. They are obsessed with developing high-end electric technology, forgetting that consumers demand good, affordable products. Relying on the cost advantage of mature process chips, Chinese cars have successfully priced their PHEV models at half the cost of European competitors while offering an additional 200 kilometers of range. This dimensional reduction attack has prompted European consumers to vote with their wallets and has rendered European carmakers' R&D investments useless. The European auto industry accounts for 7% of the EU economy and supports 13 million jobs. China's forceful entry is not just seizing the market, it's forcing the entire industry back to the essence of value for money, which is a great benefit for global consumers. The cost magic of mature process is the fiercest key to the breakthrough. Many people confuse mature with outdated, which is a completely misleading narrative. 90% of the chips in NEVs use 28 nanometers or above processes. Just like the communication chip in your phone, it doesn't need to be the most advanced, but it must be the most reliable and the cheapest. Even TSMC is now outsourcing mature process orders, 40 to 90 nanometers, and UMC is demanding a 15% price cut from suppliers for contract renewal. This indicates that the mature process has long been the battleground for cost effectiveness. China's self-sufficiency in this area acts as a cost relief valve for the supply chain, directly cutting the chip cost of an EV by 3,000 yuan, approximate $420. This is an advantage that US and European carmakers simply cannot withstand. The lessons from the US and Europe prove that industrial synergy is better than technology blockade. The US is fixated on technological hegemony and treats chips as a political tool, resulting in insufficient mature process capacity and desperate carmakers. Europe is caught in a high-end illusion, sinking R&D funds into impractical technologies, only to be defeated by superior value for money. China's intelligence lies in identifying the bottleneck of the supply chain. It's not about being the most advanced, but the most fitting for demand. Autonomous mature process development mitigates the choke risk, while unlocking the door to cost advantage. This pragmatic approach is the right model for global supply chain cooperation, as the essence of technological development is to serve people, not to be used for confrontation. Balance scale. The tilting balance of the global supply chain is hidden in U.S. hiring notices. The biggest problem facing U.S. chip factories is not money, but people. TSMC's Arizona plant can't find skilled workers and has to fly in personnel from Taiwan. Micron's new wafer fab is offering an annual salary of $120,000 but is still short of 2,000 engineers. In contrast, China's Yangtze River Delta region alone has over 500,000 chip industry workers, completing the talent chain from design to manufacturing. More crucially, China has tightly integrated the chip and auto supply chains. Chip factories are built next to auto industrial parks, allowing for a zero-distance synergy, where an order today can be delivered tomorrow. This is something the US and Europe cannot build in a decade. The 190% surge in China's PHEV exports in 2024 is the hardest evidence of this golden supply chain. The US keeps trying to build a wall with reviews, but they don't realize that the water of the supply chain cannot be blocked. If you restrict battery technology cooperation, China develops its own lithium iron phosphate batteries. If you restrict AI systems, Chinese carmakers partner with internet companies to develop in-car systems. Conversely, US carmakers are cutting production due to chip shortages, and European carmakers are stuck with inventory due to high costs. They all eventually have to turn to the Chinese supply chain. Global technological development is not a zero-sum game. If you exclude others, you will ultimately be excluded by the market. China has proven with its mature process self-sufficiency that cooperation is better than confrontation, a choice that aligns with everyone's interests and is the inevitable direction of technological progress. The US review net cannot stop Chinese cars, just as a technology blockade cannot stop technological progress. By making the right move on autonomous mature process development, China has secured the fundamental position of its supply chain and opened a thoroughfare for global expansion. Chinese auto exports will undoubtedly face more challenges in the future, but as long as we keep this hard fist of the supply chain clenched, there will be no obstacle we cannot overcome. What kind of restriction do you think the US will use next to limit Chinese cars? Have any of your friends bought a new energy vehicle from a Chinese brand?